uh, special scheduled meeting of the Scotland County Planning and Zoning Board, December the 9th, 2024. We do have a quorum, and I would like to remind everybody that the purpose of this Planning and Zoning Board, as well as the county commissioners and most of the folks in this county, are to preserve the health, safety, and well-being of the citizens of this county. I take it that everybody's had the opportunity to read the minutes on the previous meeting from October. Do we have any changes that need to be made to those? If we have no changes or amendments, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve is distributed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes from the October meeting are approved. And that's October 16th. We did not officially get to welcome, pronounce your first name for me again.
Davon.
Davon.
Yep.
Instead of David, Davon. Okay. But we do officially recognize Davon Goodwin as our newest member of the zoning board. For those of you that might not know, Davon is retired military, correct? And if you leave here and go by the traffic circle 3 or 4 miles out of town, you will see a grape orchard, grape vineyard on the left side, and a new produce and gift stand. And that's Davon's, and stop by if you get a chance.
Thank you.
And before we get on to new business, I would like to say a couple things. I think we are going to have one more regular meeting for those that have been on board for a while. You know, I am rotating off. The county commissioners did allow me to stay on for another 4-year term, but I told them I'd give them one more year. And we do have a number of issues that we have not addressed that I personally, as chairman, would like to see addressed. But professionally and for friends that are in this room, I would like to say it's been a pleasure. I've served almost 13 years now, and I hoped that what we have been able to accomplish prior to me being the chairman and after being chairman have really been beneficial. We've made some progress, and I hope upon my leaving after the next regular meeting, which is December the 18th, I hope and I charge everybody on this board to continue what we have been doing for the last several years with the onset of the new zoning ordinances, with the onset of the new solar ordinances, and soon to be, hopefully, Brooke, you don't know if the county commissioners approved the land use plan?
They have not yet.
They have not yet. And soon to hopefully be approved, the new comprehensive land use plan for the county. If you haven't had a chance to review that plan, please read over it and know it, because that is one of the primary things that this board, it's probably the strongest tool to this on doing for this county what needs to be done. So my thanks to everybody that is all your hard work while I've been here, and I'll be with you from now on your journey. You might see me back in a couple of years if they twist my arm. I don't know.
Well, I don't purport to speak to commissioners, but I will say this, you set a very high standard, and I'm certain they feel that way, and they appreciate your service.
Well, I appreciate it. Stretching the truth a little bit. First on the agenda tonight is, and I need to ask Brooke about this. Let me preface these a little bit by asking Brooke if she would clarify. I'm noticing that the original application that we approved was for one particular plat. I noticed one plat is for a special use permit, and all the rest are what we decided what should be done was conditional zoning. Since all of these are a separate plat number, tell me again why that one plat had to be a special use. It seems to me as if all of them could have been conditional zoning.
If I could just answer that, if, when you open up your ordinance, it says that the heavy industrial zoning district is by special use permit.
Okay, that's right. That's a currently zoned, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
different.
Thank you for refreshing my memory.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to
Um,
refresh my memory.
Thank you. So we have two requests for solar applications. One is for the property adjacent to Carver and Walden Middle School. And I believe that's the one for special use permit, currently zoned as, let me find my paper here.
I2.
I2 industrial. And now that we have confirmed that it's that, we do have to do a special use on that. And the other properties are on the south side of, I think it's Gillis Road.
North side of Gillis.
Pardon me?
On the north side of Gillis Road. Or I guess depending on which way you're coming from, I suppose.
Yes. Well, north is still north.
I guess, yeah, I guess it's real.
I was just picking that like a surveyor.
I'm thinking these properties, if you're headed west, they're all on the left side of the road. That would be the south side, wouldn't
Okay.
it? Those are several, 3 or 4 small plots here. I do have a question for the representatives from Cypress Creek. Since that is around the school, it's a little bit different than what we've been doing in other stuff. Has anybody here approached the school board or representatives of the school?
Oh, yeah.
And,
We so
okay,
we've been in numerous discussions with Scott County. We actually had a meeting with them in October, and we have a 3 or 4 of these slides.
No.
Can you, or what slides?
It's like the second
Slide
last slide.
9.
It is the second last slide.
Yeah, right, yes. Oh, which one? Yeah. So yeah, on October the 16th, we met with Dr. Baldwin and Meredith Bounds and their Carver Middle School, or Laurel Hill Elementary principal. Had that discussion with them. Primarily had questions around health, safety, and then I think for the most part around construction and really just timing, especially around testing timeframes and just making sure that we coordinate that. And so the idea was to establish a construction management plan to establish the times, especially for anything that's like more of a loud disturbance to ensure that we're not doing that during the testing hours. So really coordinating with that. But other than that, I think generally supportive of, I think the other aspect was really just adding additional vegetation in that area, just heavier vegetation, which we agreed to, as well as the setback, I believe we also increase as well off of the school as well from what the new ordinance requires as well.
okay.
So do you have a list of those conditions that you were agreeing to? Is that which is up there?
Yes,
It's further up there.
I
Slide.
believe that would be slide.
And my apologies for not reading that more thoroughly.
Oh, no, you're fine. On slide 5? Yes.
And they would have, Dr. Baldwin or Meredith would have been here, but they have a board meeting at this exact time tonight.
That's no excuse. We take precedent.
So
Yeah,
this is already incorporated in the application that you're making then?
Yeah.
correct.
It'll be
Yeah,
part of it?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and just to make sure, this is nothing above and beyond what the current ordinance requests, is it?
This is
I'm-
above me. So the setbacks are being increased from 50 feet to 100 feet on the school side there, as well as the vegetative buffering. We've incorporated a more dense vegetation. And then previously it was also discussed just about keeping the site entrance away from the school. So we've moved that to the other side as well. The other thing that we kind of just kept carried over from the previous approval was just construction monitoring. So just had, getting an independent party to be able to oversee the project during the construction period as well.
Okay. Yeah, my eyesight's not as good. I can't even say that.
Sure.
Do you
And
have-
there, yeah, do you have
do you have one of
The
the?
packet.
it should be in the, this,
Yeah, I've got it right here.
oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can have it.
Oh, this thing had a good packet.
Yeah, okay, same thing, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually brought it.
And that was slide 5 for that.
I got you, yeah.
So you're gonna widen the buffering and also make it denser.
That's
Yes.
correct.
And so a part of the previous ordinance was that plantings had to reach a minimum of 10 feet in 3 years of being planted. So that's why all of the plantings in the original SUP were gonna be 6 to 8 feet at planting.
Mhm.
And when you changed the ordinance, it kind of took away that restriction, but we're still gonna be planting it still to 6 to 8 feet, just as large as we can get the trees from
Good neighbors.
from the nursery.
Because, yeah, the new ordinance, I think, now calls for 5 years, so we're still keeping it to the 3-year requirement.
You addressed every reservation the school might, or every topic that wanted to.
Yeah, and then I guess whenever it gets down to like the construction timeline, which is gonna be further out, we're just coordinating, which we typically will be doing a construction management plan with all of our projects, which is involving traffic and all that stuff, so we would be coordinating with them heavily.
Yeah, and just trying to make sure that like the traffic or for the school period doesn't line up with when like vehicle or heavy construction traffic. So making sure that they're avoiding the mornings, their morning drop-offs, and then when the buses leave to drop students off after school activities. Or if there's like an evening game or something like that, we'd have that worked into it, whatever schedule that we have to minimize the amount of disturbances to normal school operations as possible.
Well, that was the biggest concern that I had. Other discussion, John,
You know, I got questions.
I know you do.
Why are y'all increasing it by another 100 acres?
Great question. So, I mean, on slide 3, so, I mean, primarily the landowners, I mean, we had interested landowners that wanted to establish this as another way just to get, additional revenue for their farm or whatnot, that reached out to us to expand after the fact that the project was approved. So that was the primary reason, was just interested landowners.
So the project was approved by Duke Energy.
Well, after the Scotland County Board of Commissioners approval.
Was it because it wasn't large enough for Duke Energy to be interested in accepting that project?
No, so this is still an 80 megawatt project at the end of the day. So, like I said, this is primarily for that. Now, as far as just the improved efficiency, that does help the project overall. But again, the main component of it being the interested landowners.
So it's still an 80 megawatt facility, but allowing more acreage allows you to spread out the panels more so that there's less what they call in-a-row shading. So there's more energy production out of the same footprint. So you're maximizing what you can have within the land.
Yes, Jim, maybe it would be helpful if they just did the presentation from the beginning. It would not last long. And I think maybe some of the questions would be answered at that point.
Plus two, we have 2 new members that you were not here when we did last solar. And I think that's probably a good idea.
Let me just
And
give
when we get through, I will have one comment.
and as just a 30-second introduction. I'm Tom Terrell. I'm here as the attorney for Cypress Creek. I'm always proud to be here with this company. Dave, when I'll talk to you, since this is your maiden voyage on a board like this, there are 2 decisions and 2 applications in front of you. One of the decisions is called legislative. That means you can exercise your opinion under the facts as you in your unbridled discretion wish. And those are the tracks up to the north. It's a different process, but there's some tracks to the south that are industrial, so it's by special use permit. And that's by evidence. It's not by opinion, it's by evidence. And this is why we have presented a notebook to show you that the team here has presented 100% of all the evidence required. And there are 2 experts here. If you have questions, one of Mr. Kirkland, he and his company have done over 1,000 of these studied of these facilities on property value. And Mr. Sandifer, he used to work with Duke Energy and has all kinds of credentials, can explain any questions about health and safety. But Mike Storch with Cypress Creek, Michael Forte have a presentation that explains a lot of these questions that you have. So I want you guys to go ahead and walk through that, and then let's go back.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I'll start with just a brief introduction. So I'm Michael Forte. I'm a senior project developer with Cypress Creek, based out in our Durham, North Carolina office. Been here since 2018. So I've been here for a little bit, and prior to this, did about 5 years in cell tower development. So just been in the development space for quite a bit. But yeah, again, appreciate you guys taking the time here.
Yeah, some of you may remember me from last year, and I've been in the county since. Mike Storch used to be a project developer in the Southeast team, which since have shifted to being a manager of external affairs for our Southeast and PJM markets. So it's pretty much from managing public affairs from pretty much Illinois through Delaware, topping off in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and then dropping down here in the Carolinas. I used to be the face of this project, but then it has since passed over to Michael in around September when I switched over to the other team. But I'm happy to be back here, and I'm coming here pretty much monthly now at this point. It's good to be down here. So I'm gonna just kind of walk you through what has kind of been done to date, and some of that already mentioned this already. But the main 460 acre parcel, the really large bit you can see in the middle, has already been approved by the Board of Commissioners unanimously in April. Special use permit for to operate a solar facility, 80 megawatts. And there are many conditions put into that process. You have questions about like the stormwater management during stormwater management monitoring during the actual construction of the project was one, as well as having some more extensive buffering in a wildlife corridor. But since then, we've resubmitted the project to Duke Energy in September, and we are looking again to add a couple hundred acres or 100 acres to the facility, and have Michael run through that briefly.
Yep, and yeah, just so, the project was submitted to Duke, and the anticipated notifications would be January 10th. And so from there, really, we wouldn't really have a final contract until June of next year. And then really, if the project were to move forward, we're talking about another 3-ish years before any construction would begin. That's primarily just due to Duke's interconnection study process, and just as far as from studying it to engineering, procuring the materials, and then all the way to construction. That's part of the reason as to why that timeline is so far out, with the project being estimated to be complete in early 2029. So just to give you a sense of like future timing, if the project is selected in early next year. So then just going to the next slide, kind of what we were just talking about earlier, right? So why we're here. So really just to seek that approval for the additional 100 acres. And primarily the reasoning for that was due to the landowners reaching out to us and expressing their interest to be a part of the project. And so really just kind of started from there. But again, there are additional benefits with the project that get to see that improved efficiency if we are able to see that spaced out. Going to the next slide here. So again, this is just highlighting some of the project details of the new area. So really, we've got the southern portion that we mentioned, south of Old Wire Road, and then we've got the other portion that's just to the west of Gillis Road here. So again, still an 80 megawatt project, going from the 460 to the 560 acres. The portions that are up there to Gillis Road, residential agricultural, which is going before the conditional zoning process. The property to the south going for the SUP process. Historically, it's primarily wooded in the northern portion and agricultural field to the south with an existing solar field on the same property as well.
Michael, what are the rough acreages on these two tracks? I asked you about it beforehand, but just for purposes of the rough acreages for each track.
Yeah, absolutely. So the northern portion is around 50 acres, maybe just shy of 50 acres.
The Gillis Road track?
Yes, sir. And the southern portion is really about, I want to say 45 acres. So in total, it's probably just shy of 100 acres. And I can get that full total to you guys as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let's go into the next slide here.
55, 17, and 20.
Was there a question? I'm
on
sorry.
GIS.
Oh, gotcha. So then here on this slide, just kind of touching on, what we were talking about, so I'm not sure if there's any additional questions just surrounding some of the commitments that we are doing with these new added tracks here. Nothing else there, we can keep moving to the next one. Here, really just showing that comparison again, right, just from the original area that was approved and then reflecting the new additional areas that are being added here today. Here's just an example, and we have a larger plan here too, if you guys want to take a closer look. But here's just the landscaping plan, when we've got the highlighted areas in orange, which is kind of the more heavier, dense landscaping buffering. But yes, the idea is that the entire site will be encapsulated with some form of existing or planted vegetation. This slide just kind of gives you a sense of the various details of what that landscaping would look like, with the bottom one, or top right one, excuse me, being the heavier vegetation that we're proposing. So that would be kind of near the school and the along the roads.
Let me interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah.
People come in and say, but I don't want to see it. They won't. That's the point, is that this vegetation is designed so that they won't see it.
And I'll make one comment too, because if you travel roads around here, within the city's jurisdiction within a mile, you'll see solar facilities, and they do not have these buffers.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, absolutely. Those
So,
were all built under different standards, and that's why we're showing you what these standards would be. And I say it, in many circumstances, it becomes a condition of the project if it's not already in the ordinance. And if they don't replace it in the next growing season, then there's a notice of violation. If they accumulate, you can pull the permit. I mean, you have enforcement power.
And just going to the next slide here. We also kind of already touched on, but Mike, you wanna?
Yeah, so just to reiterate, we had conversations, a virtual meeting with the school superintendent, director of public relations, as well as the elementary school new principal. We invited Carver Middle School's president or principal. She wasn't able to attend at the time, mainly discussing concerns around health and safety, just what is the project going to look like. And then we were able to actually have when we had our community meeting for neighbors of the project, Mr. Ward came out again just to show him the new areas of the site, and then Dr. Baldwin, Meredith Bounds also were able to come out and see the maps in person, be able to address more questions. But through our discussions, we've been very proactive in making sure that we can hear any concerns that they have, and they know that they have an open line of communication with us, given them our involvement with the school system over since pretty much August, or the last year and a half we've been in the county.
And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, our presentation here. And we've got some extra slides in the back too, just to kind of more briefly describe kind of our company overall, and just kind of the development experience we have here in North Carolina. A little bit more information around Wyandotte County, if those questions crop up as well. But yeah, I mean, I was open up to the floor if there's any questions to start off with.
I'll just comment about Cypress Creek as a corporation. I heard a rumor somewhere that Cypress Creek might have been sold. Or
They took so many
That's
years
news
to
to
take
us.
advantage of the federal money.
from my understanding, a Swedish investment company is that who owns Cypress Creek?
EQT had purchased us back maybe in October of 2021.
Okay,
But they, they're just as far as providing capital, but it's still Cypress Creek.
that's the last company I knew of.
Yep, yes, sir.
But somebody in the last couple of months said, "Oh, they've been sold." I said, "What?"
No,
Okay,
same ownership.
well, that takes care of a couple of questions I had about community commitment.
Sure.
If it had been another company, but we have seen you guys do some scholarships and do some donations. And just, we appreciate that. And we certainly, in this county, we need it. Please give back.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what our company really tries to preach, right? I mean, we're building these projects, so we don't want to just be, we develop them and then we walk away. We want to continue to keep providing, so.
And we've really appreciated
Sorry
the
to interrupt.
opportunity. Yeah, no, we really appreciate the opportunity to be able to get more involved with the school system, really support kind of, I guess, I don't want to say renaissance, but like the reinvigoration that I've noticed on the ground from people involved with the school systems. Positivity there is around going to school. Like I spoke at Convocation, and it was one of the best experiences that I've ever had ever in terms of like just seeing the amount of energy and excitement to be able to go and teach for the upcoming school year. And then we were actually able to
Great.
see one of the, they have monthly teacher luncheons or like roundtable discussions where representatives from all the schools can come in, sit down with Dr. Baldwin and, air out their concerns, and they do that to basically keep a pulse. And we are able to sit there and get perspective, speak with teachers, learn more about what's going on, the pressing concerns for the county, and
where we can get involved, so.
yeah, definitely. And then we got to tour the CTE amenities that are very, very blessed to have in this county, which it's great to see. So I'm very happy to be a part of it.
So,
Now the smoke is cleared. I can't understand why Phil Futrell is a very smart individual who's very good with money and good with investments. Why we all of a sudden have added acreage to land he already owned at the time in which we approved this last solar farm?
It's a great question. I mean, to be honest, this was never a discussion that cropped up before, and it was kind of just a discussion that cropped up after the fact. As to why we weren't, shouldn't fully understand it, but the fact that he wanted to be a part of it was something of an interest, and so that was kind of where the conversations kind of led.
Yeah, it was just like, hey, I have this.
So I
Do
think
you want to use it or not?
ideally, I think if we would have known it at the beginning, right, we probably want to just incorporate it all at the same time versus having to come back.
Right there with it. It's not like it was 5 miles down the road, it's adjoining it.
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
That again, your guess is as good as ours. It just wasn't involved in the initial negotiation.
Well, do y'all consider y'all a green energy company? Y'all consider y'all green energy?
That's
That's
more of a
sort of
buzzword. Tell me, what do you,
Well, it's, I'm more agriculture based than I am solar panels. This gentleman here is new to our community. He bought some land and put grapevines, started a market, and I have not heard one person have anything bad to say about what he's done. It's agricultural use for the most part. And I think that's great. Everybody has been so excited by what this gentleman has done. He's new to the board. I didn't even know he was on here till this morning, and I hadn't spoken to him in a month or more. And to me, that's what Scotland County needs. Other than the landowner, we've been through this, the only one who benefits in y'all. This is a money-making situation with y'all with these solar panels. We're left to sit there and view them. Yes, y'all gonna plant buffers, and that's great. If we have to have them, they definitely need buffers. But I just don't see the huge benefit that it does for the community.
let me answer that, and I'm gonna let Chris Sanderford jump in. Chris and I both own large acres. My parents died this year. We have 752 acres that we're trying to keep in the family, but we're all in our 60s, 6 of us. And we're a little bit beyond either time-wise or being able physically to go out and do all the stuff that you need to do. That we had cattle farm, sinking fence posts, running the lines. I mean, you have to run them through a head gate. I can go on and on and on about that. But we want our children and our grandchildren to have access to it. So what we need to do that is to have ways to diversify. We just sold our herd because you lose money when the droughts, hurricanes, you get toxic fescue, international markets. We need to be able to control what we do on our land. And we have had so many meetings to figure that out. And what we want is for it to be our decision how we use our land in a way that works for us. So I'm speaking as a someone who is in agriculture, Chris has had to, he has diversified, he's got a 5 megawatt solar farm on his property. Does that help you cover your nut?
Yeah, actually, I lease 3 5 megawatt, and I own a 1.25 megawatt that I bought, and then I've got 2 more, and they're just scattered around, but it absolutely helps the cash flow, because, I mean, in other words, I just had 2 clear cuts in here, and it's, okay, well, actually, last year, but now I'm paying $20,000 to get this field, ready. I gotta pay another $25,000 to get it planted. It's, well, that'll be good for the next 18, 20 years, but yeah, it's a good cash flow. It comes every year instead of once every 25.
Last week in Edgecombe County, a young woman came in, her land was being considered for some of the panels on the project. And she says, we grow cotton, but we have to clear 80 cents, I don't know, a pound or
very
whatever
much
it was.
about that.
There's a certain amount that, she said, we can't do that. Our expenses sometimes take us over. But if we have these panels, that gives us an ability to stay in the business if you'll just let us diversify.
So that brings us to the issue that we have had in this county, and especially with the development of the comprehensive land use plan. One of the things that we are very interested in is preserving the rural heritage of the county. Now, if you look at the numbers, in the last 22 years, Scotland County has lost a little in excess of 20% of their their arable agricultural land. If everybody, you look at digital corporations, the big guys buy the small guys because it's such a great deal. We'll offer you a whole lot of money. I'm not saying we're not good, bad, indifferent. What I'm saying is this is an issue that at some point, every county is going to have to address. How much more are we willing to let be converted into non-agricultural land, non-usable natural resource land, non-reusable timberland? You know, there's a point where somebody's going to have to say, it's got to stop. We're not the people that have to decide that. We can decide whether or not we want to approve or not approve for this county. But right now, I can tell you whether we approve or disapprove, it's going to the county commissioners. They're going to say, we approve it. You know, we just know that. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place here, whether we want it or not, or whether we approve it or not. Because the law says you can take it to the county commissioners, even if we do say we don't approve it.
Can I comment on that?
Sure,
On the
yeah,
planning board,
please, Chris.
you're talking about 1/2 of 1% acres in this county. If this is approved, everything else that you got, you're talking about 1/2 of 1%. I did that as part of my report, because that issue comes up. In Nash County, we've approved 37. That's where I'm from. We won't approve it. The lines, the transformers, the substation are full. We're done. Unless they build some more lines.
Yeah.
We can't export any more energy out of Nash County, and it's less than 2%. Okay.
I'm not concerned about
Okay,
that.
I'm just saying, there is a limit, because you got power lines that's gonna limit how much you can export.
That's not the limit I'm concerned about. I'm
But-
concerned about the limit of how much land can we take away before we can't provide for this country.
Well, let me tell you this
So-
point too of that, where we lose most of our land. Every month on the planning board, we approve subdivisions.
Yeah.
64, 264, 97, any feeder road that goes into Raleigh has got subdivision, and we approve 3 to 5, and it's probably at minimum $500 acres, just about every meeting has gone into subdivisions. And that's what it is. This, like they were talking about, or these panels can come out in 40 years when it's over. But the houses and the infrastructure that goes to those houses, the stores, the Walmarts, and everything else is gonna come, the schools, everything else that come with putting that many homes in that area. You're talking about centuries probably. I don't know if it will ever be converted back to farmland. And Nash County is a farming community. I mean, this is a rural community, but we're now, I'm just saying, solar farm is a really, really small sliver. We lose a lot more land to subdivisions, and it maybe doesn't make any difference.
Not here.
I
Yeah,
understand.
not here.
But I'm just saying, that's where that's the big chunks. It's not the solar farm, we're done. We approved them, started 10 years ago. We approved, they've helped the tax base. We love them. We have no difficulty with them. And so there's no complaint, but there's no lines or substations left open for us. So I'm saying that's the cap. You said, where is it?
Yeah,
It's when the lines are full.
yeah, again, Chris, that's not a concern of mine. I don't care if the lines are full or not. What I care about and what this board cares about, and I hope what the county, the citizens of this county care about as a whole, is at what point do we say no more, regardless of the lines? And that's not something that I think we need to take up here
I
tonight,
understand.
but you understand, that's
Yeah, I
what we
understand.
have discussed a lot.
You can
State of North
something-
Carolina has lost 19.67% from 2002 to 2022. They lost 19.67% of their farm to infrastructure, commercial, residential, and solar. So, we've lost 1/5 of the agricultural land in this state to something. And at what point, again, we're not one, I'm not one, I'm going off the board. And that's not something we're going to answer here. But I just want you to understand, that's what we have discussed a lot. It's got to be some point where everybody says, I want to make all that money, but this board and the county commissioner say, well, we got to stop somewhere. And that's not what happened tonight, I'm sure, but
That should
we
be
worry
part of
about
your
that.
Your land use plan, your ordinance, your land use plan should give you that kind of.
it gives us a bigger tool to use. And this new solar ordinances also does mention preservation of our rural heritage in there. So in the future, when we do get to consider those things, we do have that as a tool to look at.
In response
But,
to your, sorry, Joe, you done?
No,
In response to your subdivisions, we're gonna have to have one, two. Do we want solar panels or do we want homes? It's gonna be homes. The tax value of the home and the taxes they're gonna be paying and property tax of the home, the vehicles they're gonna be driving, the potential that they're working in the county, paying taxes, buying groceries. There's so much more that comes with that than just a little bit of tax on some solar panels, who's not benefiting anyone but the landowner and y'all.
And you can tell how it works in this town.
What's that?
If the house doesn't cost $500,000, you're losing money.
Well,
I'm just telling you, in Nash County, the house the cost of the schools, cost of extra police, the cost for extra, all the other infrastructure is required for those houses. You gotta have $500,000 house just to break even on a, and I mean, that's just our experience.
but you also, that may be in your visions and everybody can look at it. It's all about perspective. Y'all had people in here, you've done, trying to show us how it doesn't affect people's property value being next door and all. Y'all got endless funds to come up with any data that you want to present to us and present to anyone to make it sound like this is the most glorious thing that's ever happened to creation. But with those homes, you build communities. And you have people in communities who can help support it. Yeah, it might be a burden to an extent, but they are paying taxes. We do have stores, we have industrial that needs employees. They gotta live somewhere. So, yes, subdivisions may not be the best thing, better than agriculture and leaving agricultural land, but to me, it's better than solar panels.
I have a couple of questions on the zoning, if you don't mind. The one piece next to the school, that's a heavy industrial zone, is that right?
That's I-2.
That's not gonna be residential under heavy industrial.
That is correct.
The other piece, is that currently farmland? I know it's zoned RA, but is it used as farmland or
It's just,
on Gillis
Tim-
Road?
Timber.
It's
Yeah,
just a
timber.
So it's in timber?
Yeah.
So it's in a special use valuation already,
It's in-
agricultural timber.
Yeah.
So it's already getting a preferential tax treatment on that one.
Yes.
And the piece next to the school is not gonna be residential because it's zoned for heavy industrial.
And one of the things I just wanted to bring up on like the local benefits, we're talking about farmland preservation, and I know I can't speak to this as a soil microbiologist, but as saying industrial farming, monocrop farming over a multi-decade period of time would hypothetically reduce the overall soil health integrity. I'm not a soil microbiologist.
I know where you're going with this.
And so, in talking about farmland preservation, this land will sit for 30 to 40 years
Mhm.
without being continually used with pesticides, with herbicides, with fertilizer, and isn't constantly being turned up. So it gives it a chance to rest, which it probably hasn't had in 30 to 40, 50, 60 years. So that's one point in terms of talking about, it's not, there's like the idea that solar saves farms, quote unquote, and then this can be able to use so that in the future, when you need farming land, again, you can bring it back into farming land. That's one point. I'm not a soil microbiologist. We haven't done the test. I can't verify everything that is. That is just one perspective. The second perspective, and I've seen this being in the community, being at the Christmas on Main events and tabling, that the jobs that people can get through the construction of these facilities usually is about 100 to 150 people per project of this size. I went last year and I went this year with Michael. And during that time period, I've now met two people who came up to me and were like, this job has been able, or the facilities that were built in the county were able to provide my family with a good paying job that I've now been able to use to go when other solar farms are being built across the state and in South Carolina, right over the border. Now we've been able to go and bid on those projects and have a continued work stream. Because the reality of this is Duke is procuring solar 1,500 megawatts every year, pretty much indefinitely into the 2030s. So there are going to be projects that need to be built over and over again, about 10 to 12, and we are going to be building up our own local labor and continuing to have, so when you have one job on your resume, then you can have another, and then you have another, and people can turn this into a career and continue to employ it.
That is great, but those people are going to be here for a short period of time to construct it, and then they're moving on.
But Laurinburg's a
not
nice
staying.
place. Maybe they like so much while they're staying here that
There
they
is
can
that
come and stay.
chance, but the odds and percentage, I bet you, they do not stay in the area in which they do that. Out of town, every truck that I've seen stopped at the gas station that was with y'all or any other company, have the tags, people I didn't recognize, not to say they want from here, because I don't know everybody, but that point, I see what you're trying to say, but those 150 people are only gonna be here a year or however long it is for construction. And I bet you a larger percentage than less will not stay here or move here or even live here.
I think one other point too to bring is like maybe it's not direct, but indirectly there is benefits because not only is it a $3.5 million over the course of 40 years in taxes, and that's money that's going to be able to put towards schools or programs that could help the community, right? So I think that's like another aspect to point out versus what it's currently being served as, where it's probably being 100,000 right now. So I'm just saying like indirectly, it's able to at least provide something to the community on top of what we want to do as partnering with the community more with partnering with school systems and all that. So that,
Well, I'm sure y'all come here and you dump money into the parade and other things. Hey, we're great people investing monies, but you're making the money off of our backs. We're going to have to live with what y'all bring. The problem too is when these solar started, you'd see 20, 30 acre fields. I get it. I understand investment in family land. I'm the fifth on our land, and I love my land, and my family's been there. I'm not going to pollute. I actually thought about solar panels years ago because of the exact reason y'all talking about, but now I would not do it. Our most natural resources is going to be soil and water in this county. We still have more agricultural land in most counties as you go further north. And if we don't do something now to start protecting it, we're not going to have it. The other problem is these solar panels, when they started, they were small acreage, 20, 30 acres. I get it. Go put it off the road, put it in poor ground. It won't grow anything. That's where these go. Top of buildings, wherever else. That's green energy to me. Put them in places where you're not affecting other resources that we're actually running out of. And the other problem is y'all don't want the 20 acre sites. Y'all want the 500, 1,000 acre sites. Y'all said in the last meeting that they're wanting this large size is the only thing that is really interested by Duke because it makes more sense. Well, so if y'all come in here and get something approved, we know, I don't know, what's the minimum acres to meet the size that Duke wants? 500, 600 acres?
About 420.
40 megawatt project is the minimum.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
400 acres.
Okay,
So
so minimum, anytime you come back in the future, you're gonna be taking 400 acres of farmland and or some woods. I understand some of it's wood, but that is huge. 400 here, 400 there, that adds up pretty quick.
the other thing you got to consider is just there's only so many transmission lines that run through the county, and that's where you're locating these projects.
So do
And
we deserve to have solar panels everywhere along our transmission lines because we happen to have them in our county?
You can't.
And there's just not enough capacity. It's like the transmission system's like a highway. There's only so much you can put onto the grid. So that's what I guess the amount of these, and then on top of that, just actually getting approved from Duke and actually coming to fruition. I mean, you're talking about a attrition rate that's a success rate probably about 10% from start to end.
Okay, but you tell me that, and that is great. I understand that. But you got a gentleman here work for Duke.
Mhm.
Y'all make too much money to not know exactly what Duke is going to require and want and be interested in. Y'all not going to present anything to Duke that Duke's not going to be interested in or wouldn't want to have.
It's a,
Not to say you're going to get it every time because they're buying other sites in other counties and other places, but Duke's the baby and y'all holding the baby food in the spoon, giving it to them. They know what they're wanting. Y'all know what they're wanting. You got this gentleman here who worked with them and very knowledgeable. I mean, you've got it wrapped up. I just don't see where they benefit us more than agricultural land, and that's what our county is made of. That's why y'all don't. A lot of these other counties have the homes, the subdivision, the commercial property because you can't put them there in the size that Duke won't. We're one of these rural counties that still have land like this that, he's not prepared for this, but you probably came here because you found land you could put your grapes on and do that. Well, that's what we're about. That's what we've been for hundreds of years around here is more agricultural, farm, rural areas. We're not growing. And the more, if we don't do something now to protect us, we're going to end up like everybody else. And y'all are going to be sitting at, the companies like this are going to be sitting back making all the money while we have to drive by them every day. And Philip Cottrell is a great guy and I respect him much, and please forgive me for this, but he'll be retiring in Moore County. He won't have to drive by the sites anymore. He's a farmer, but I understand why he's doing it, because if I was at his age, probably the same reason y'all, financial terms. That's security for your retirement. I could probably do, well, I don't know if my farms would be eligible. I could do the same thing, but I choose not because I appreciate my heritage and what I've been given down from my family. Now, I understand that y'all sold y'all's family farm off. Y'all have no interest in it.
We have not sold our family farm.
Oh, yes, right. That's right. You said
Leasing.
you're
We
leasing.
just
I'm sorry. You're
not
leasing it.
losing
I'm
money
sorry.
on
You're
it.
right. You're right. I took it wrong. But that's where I'm coming from. I'm going to preserve what my family's been doing for so long. That's my choice. But we're just so much more agricultural based that if we don't slow this thing down, what we're going to see is solar panels. And the buffers are great. But a lot of these, I don't think they'll completely hide them. They'll help a lot. But I just don't feel like. If we
You
don't
can
do
see what
something-
we've been talking about for the last 6 months, year.
John,
I
what
mean,
you don't know about
Jim,
Philip
yeah,
is
Jim, you're
his
not-
son is a lineman
Is it?
and he is coming home to farm the family farm.
Well, that's good.
So Philip may be retiring, but he's not getting out of the farming business.
Right.
That's just
But it's just that we have concerns for the future of this county.
Sure.
And we know we're not gonna, like I said, we're not gonna answer that here tonight. But we want you to know that when you come back with the next farm, that these are concerns that will be more readily addressed once we get the comprehensive land use plan passed. And I don't think there's any likelihood that what you are presenting tonight is not gonna go through the county commissioners. I'm 90% sure, 99% sure it will.
We got new members. I have no clue.
It's a more conservative, individually based county commissioners now that are more concerned with what do I get to do with my land rather than what do we have to be concerned with our land. And I know that from conversations I've had with county commissioners. So your projects are, I almost guarantee you 100% gonna pass. But in the future, we've got things, we have areas in the northern part of the county that we can't tax. We've got Camp McCall, we've got the wildlife lands. Those are non-taxable. Our tax rate is right around $1 a hundred. And you go to other counties, Moore County is what, about 55%, 55 cents a hundred? I don't know. You know, you go to other counties and their tax rates are much, we're either the highest or second highest tax rate in the state. A lot of that has to do with our school board and the school floor, which is we're the only county that has it. We're required to do a specific percentage per student or basis per student determined on the state. And that is more than, what's that, about 60% of the budget? It's a huge amount of the budget. Money's a big thing here. Brooke's doing 2 jobs, maybe 3 jobs, I don't know. They keep giving her more and more and more to do. So just be forewarned. We've got concerns here. And it's gonna come up the next time you guys are here. And I know you will be, because Philip's got more land. Lee's got more land. I think what we like to see is, before we do any more farmland, is that I know Lee's got close to 1,000 acres of scrub oak up on Aberdeen Highway. Clear that off. Put it up there where nothing will grow. You know, spend a little bit of extra money and put it where nobody's going to put anything in the future. But
And I agree with that. There's a place for everything. I'm not saying not to have solar panels, but there's a place for everything. But the problem is, anytime in the future, there are going to be these huge mega, well, I don't know if you call them mega site or what, there are going to be these huge these solar farms that are going to be taking so much of the land. 20 acres here, 30, I get that. That's fine. Put them out of sight. The one that Philip has, is that Phillips that's already near the school there? I haven't looked, but the one existing that y'all gonna be adding up to.
The one back here.
Yeah,
That's
that's a 5 megawatt, yeah.
But you see, that's out of sight, nobody sees it. I mean, those are not so bad because you're not seeing them on the road. And if you put them in poor land where the crops not the road, I mean, that's more how I deal with stuff. But it just frustrates me to see us take our good natural resource and put it in solar panels because it's just not green to me.
Michael, you did an analysis on what the tax return was gonna be on this based on your use.
It's about 2,000% increase.
That was gonna be my question. I'm assuming that the 3 tracks on Gillis Road are in forestry valuation and the other pieces in farm valuation. If they were to stay that way, how would the tax return be compared to your use?
Are you talking about like if the land is brought out into now like for the solar use? Is that what you're saying? Like what would happen after that point?
You just said over the next X number of years,
Mhm.
there'll be $3.5 million worth of taxes.
Yes.
I thought that's what you said.
Yeah.
over 40 years, that's less than $100,000 a year.
Right. My question was, how does it compare to the valuations, this being forestry and this being agricultural?
The figures that actually even brought up don't even include these properties, so it would actually that's a smaller amount, so it would actually be even larger than that. We haven't even updated our plans, I think, to incorporate this. I'd have to take a look back, but the 3.5 million actually just covers this particular portion. So I'd have to take a look back, I guess, exactly what these particular 2 portions are.
That's my question. Tom, do you understand my question?
Yes.
Based on the forestry valuation, and is it roughly the same percentage that you get?
It is what?
Is your land use percentage roughly the same as forestry and agricultural?
Yes.
Okay.
And as far as taxes go, I won't say who, but somebody from Cypress Creek sent me some documents at the last request that you had for solar applications. And when I went back through, it had tax benefits for counties all over the state of North Carolina. And I went through all those, and for the 17 at the time projects that had been completed in the county over however many years it was since the first one, the county had realized somewhere around $400,000 additional tax revenue in that period of time. That's off 17 projects. Now, granted, a lot of this has to do with we have a high tax valuation. You go to a county that's got 30 cents to 100, 40 cents to 100, it's a little different. So there's a lot of factors that Scotland County has that Nash County doesn't have, or other counties, and we kind of have to look at it a little bit differently. We have excessively high unemployment rate. It's just, we're a different world in Scotland County,
They know. all
Really
this.
are.
That's why they're here. They know it,
so.
in my opinion, because we got the land that they need to do what they need to do, what it boils down to.
So,
They're in every county.
Well, they may be.
I mean,
We're Scotland County. We're not Nash. We're not Robinson. We're not Moore. We need to do what we need to do to protect our county, to preserve the way we see in our land use plan or for a future for our people here.
I got that comment. We had got on the subject of taxes, and I liked your question. You talked about, I guess, either would we benefit from the solar panel farm, or would it still have the same value if it was forestry? Is that what I understand?
Well, I think they said they're gonna be taxed at the same reduced rate, but I don't know whether the value on what you put on there will be, is it gonna be higher or the same? To start with.
I can share the report with you all too, as far as, from a tax consultant that we work with. Basically, they're working with the county appraisers along with the state appraisers as how solar is assessed within the county and with the state. And they're applying an equation to that based off of the acreage that's being used for, whatever the investment is. And they're calculating what that figure is. And so they're being very conservative in their estimates. So that 3.5 million that I mentioned is probably on the lower end is what they're giving us. And I'll share that information with you so you can see the full report. But that's how you get to those figures.
Is your valuation on these two tracts going to be higher with your use than it is as agricultural and forestry?
Yeah, let me,
How much more?
yeah, the basis of it is, right now, it has an exemption, these tracts, because they're in agricultural or silvicultural timber production. It's very, very low. If it's anything like Randolph County, where my farm is, for 729 acres, our biggest tract, I just wrote a check for over $6,000. In my home in High Point, it's almost the same thing on a half acre. So just to give you some example of the markdown for ag. But when it's converted to solar, you have three different things happening. One, 3 years worth of taxes at the full rate, it's a clawback, have to be paid. These guys pay those taxes. So that's, it's found money. It then goes from agricultural valuation to an industrial valuation. And that's for the land, but you also have personal property taxes on top of that. So you have 3 different pockets of money that are coming in that are much more substantial than land that's growing hay or sheep or
Trees.
soybeans or whatever.
Or trees?
Yeah, those plants are producing oxygen. They're providing food for livestock and or animals and what they're producing for. Solar is just making power. That's all they're doing. It's all it's doing. And it's not benefiting the community. All those crops are benefiting people who eat it, consume it. The tractor drivers are getting paid. And one of y'all brought up about the emissions that the tractor puts off compared to the solar panel. Well, one thing y'all failed to talk about is how much oxygen the plant makes in return to having the emissions put out by the tractor, the people it feeds, or the livestock. That's what keeps making our world go round and round. We'll have power if we don't have solar panels. We either have nuclear
Or how long does it take, how much does it cost, and how much does it take to build, in time to build a nuclear power plant? 'Cause there's only been one in the last 30 years, and it cost over $2 billion and took 10 years.
and it may. I'm just saying we still will have power because there's too much money to be made, whether it's in the solar or another use or hydroelectric plant or anything. But what I'm getting at least, yeah, I don't know. I haven't done the numbers to compare the tax on land versus the solar panel that the farming's doing, but it benefits more than just taxes.
I could sit here, we could,
You're right.
I mean, you're made up your mind, and I understand that, but let me just tell you some facts. It takes 63 acres of corn to do what 1 acre of solar panels to do. That's how
To
much
make
more
electricity,
to make electricity, but when you run it in a car, but if you're gonna use half of your corn crop for fuel, guess what America does? Half of our corn crop goes into making ethanol for, which is actually losing money. I mean, that's
and
just,
that may be.
what I'm just
I've
saying.
heard that too,
That's a
but
fact.
there's other sources. I mean, there's negatives to everything.
You can't eat kilowatts. I understand that. But I'll tell you this is EPA says this. They're a little over half the cost that they're making, that they're gonna get for this, reduces the health cost for the people in Scotland County. They rate it in $27 a kilowatt hour versus 45, or $27 a megawatt hour versus 45 they get paid. That's how much your health costs because they reduce the emissions. You're talking about making oxygen. Well, what if you don't burn fuel? You save a lot of oxygen.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Yes.
saying, if this guy's 63 times more efficient, I mean, I can go on and it's not gonna make any difference. I
But
understand
the
that.
point is, it affects more variables than just that one thing.
You know, we're intelligent people in here. I know you guys all understand our argument. And I guarantee you, every one of you has thought about the same thing from our standpoint, but that's irrelevant. We can't sit here. We can't solve the energy problem in Scotland County. We can't solve the social problems of North Carolina or the United States. We can't do that in this one room.
You're right.
But I do hope that when you understand, when Philip and Lee come back and say, we want to add some more acreage, that it's going to be a little bit different look to the board when you come back. And it may be a different look tonight, I don't know.
By the
But,
commissioners meeting, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
By the commissioners meeting and I don't think the commissioners are gonna base their decision solely on the difference in the amount of taxes that come in by any means. But that would be one factor they'll look at. Can y'all do an analysis of what the clawback's gonna be on these properties? And what I assume you're going to argue is going to be a higher amount of taxes coming in under your uses.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, because the report that we do have does show a graph, and it does show
does it already have the numbers
and
in it?
I'll make sure to provide it. But I think what your point too, as far as like specifically calling out maybe like timber and seeing what that, maybe these particular tracks, because it's saying over like all the properties involved
Right.
compared to the project itself. So if I split it out by like the actual project, so it's like, or the property versus the project, then yeah, I can certainly show those differences as well.
Well,
in
it'll be a
that same-
3-year clawback, which will be basically a windfall for that 3-year period.
Mhm.
Because you'll be paying, the 3-year period that covers will be 100% valuation.
Yeah, if it's like a green belt assessment or something like that.
So that's a pretty easy calculation, as long as you got the valuation on the property. Right?
Yeah, it would be for that particular portion, right, that's being
Well,
pulled out.
Yeah. You could do it for the whole, anyway.
Yep.
The other thing is the comparison of what the tax return would be under the uses you're requesting versus the existing uses
Yeah, no,
on those two tracks.
Any more, yeah, Billy?
I got another comment, or maybe a question. We spoke over briefly, and I understand what you're saying in reference to almost like opportunity costs. Like today, it may benefit, what you guys are trying to accomplish, but us being located close to Fort Liberty now and them expanding the base and us having a lot of land use availability, it would benefit us 10, 15, 20 years from now if that land was taken up for the solar panels. I think one of my questions though, when we talk about community usage, is exactly how the community would benefit as far as like how this power is going to be distributed, whether it's in, smaller inner communities or whether it's, distributed to, rural suburban communities. That's just one of my questions. And then a cost, like how much is the current, I guess, bill for the average, community citizen, and then like they have said, I guess you guys are going to be approved or disapproved. I don't know how that works, but I guess will the cost be decreasing if they're using your solar panels? Just trying to understand some of those.
Yeah, I'll take, so just to go through your questions, the first one was about where does the power go once it's generated from the panels and put on the grid? That's the first question.
Yeah.
The second question is regarding the impacts to rates. right? Were there, or are there just those two?
And then I talked about opportunity costs, but we don't really have to get into that. We spent a lot of time on that already. But that's pretty much his argument. Look, is the opportunity cost that we'll be losing, giving you guys is roughly 538 acres of land. Well, I guess not us giving it, but it being sold and then us using it for solar panels as opposed to it being used for agriculture or maybe residential with the Fort Liberty expansion that's occurring.
The land will not be sold, it'll be leased. It's, I'm assuming you signed a 30-year lease and more or less.
Yeah,
But,
It covers the life of the project.
Yeah, they will use that land and pay a lease payment per acre to the owner for the agreed upon period. And then as you look at solar, they also agreed to decommission all the panels and return the land back to the original condition. But, yeah, you guys never buy the land, do you? It's always a lease.
Sometimes. But
Sometimes you do?
it's
Okay.
It's up to the landowner.
Right.
typically.
Okay, but in this case, it's a lease agreement.
Leasing allows it to typically keep it in the family and offer a cash flow payment over time. So to address the first question, once the electrons hit the grid, they go wherever they go. So they step up and down through transformers from the large power lines down to the small power lines that you'd see around your house. It's just depending on where demand is.
And that's for any energy resource, whether that be coal, nuclear, whatever that is. There is no true way to be able to determine where is the power going unless, if there's a near load center, that's where it's going to go. So whoever's using up a lot of that power for the major factory, if it's a big town or city, it's going to go to where the power is needed.
Based on the constraints of all the electrical requirements in the grid infrastructure. So that's the first. Does that answer your first question? The second question regarding will rates decrease? So rates will not decrease on a yearly basis with the addition of new solar installations in the state. Duke is able to acquire a rate of return on their investment for new infrastructure. 55% of that 1,500 megawatts that I was talking about is Duke owned, and 45% of it will be owned by like a developer like us. That will then be through a long-term power purchase agreement. So over 25 years, we lock in a certain price for the electricity that we develop for a project, and then that carries through. And so that offers price certainty for a period of time for these projects and for solar. And that price certainty helps to minimize the fuel cost or the costs to the system that you need from other generating sources. So for example, if you have a system that has a coal power plant, a nuclear power plant, a natural gas power plant, a bunch of solar. The solar is locked in at a fixed rate for a period of time. There's no fuel cost, so there's no risk to what is going on in whatever else part of the world there is. We have that set price and it's staying that way. Nuclear has a fuel cost. It's very cost intensive to operate a nuclear facility. They run at all times. They provide the base power that pretty much stabilizes our grid. It's also very expensive to run it because you need the uranium, you need all the high paid jobs to be able to make sure you operate that facility. Coal, natural gas also have the fuel risk and the
External markets.
Yes, the external market pressures. So the prices can vary over time. And when you talk about new costs of like new forms of generation that we need to be able to meet our energy demands as a state and as a country, there's so much growth going on for many different reasons, some great, some not. That's again up to debating of where
Let's
we
debate that tonight.
Yeah, not tonight, but there is going to be more energy needs, and we currently as a state don't even produce enough of our own energy to meet our own demand, and it's rapidly growing. And so in terms of there will be a need for new generation, but in terms of generation sources that have no fuel risk, solar, wind versus fossil fuels, nuclear, that have exposure to fuel risk, that can offer price fluctuations. And then in terms of to actually build the facility and get it into the grid when we need it, solar is one of the lowest, if not the lowest, depending on how you shake out the numbers, region, pricing, equipment versus compared to building generation.
Can I do a follow-up on
Yes.
read through answering this question?
Yeah, I was gonna stop. I said a lot of stuff at the same time.
Well, I think
But-
this is a follow-up on Billy's question. You may have sort of answered it, but I'm not sure. You know, one of the things that's important for us here is to try to attract industry if possible.
Right.
We really need some. Will this project and projects like it have any impact on our ability to attract industry in any way, plus, minus, or just no effect?
I mean, it's going to attract from when you have companies that are coming to Duke to get there, because Duke is the one that has to run the procurements.
Right.
And so a lot of these external companies, or whether it's an Amazon or what have you, they're looking to see what the utility can provide as far as competitive procurement programs and what kind of renewables that they can provide. And so they are looking into that as to where they're going to locate the facility. So it does, to an extent, offer the ability for the territory, so for Duke Energy territory, for more outside factories to be looking in this particular area. Now, can I say specifically, hey, it's going to help Scotland County? No.
That's a
But-
regional multi-state area you're talking about.
We're talking about North Carolina and South Carolina, correct?
Just those two?
For Duke,
For
we're
Duke
just
Energy.
talking about Duke.
Yeah, for
Because
just
of the
Duke-
market.
correct.
Okay, they're not in Florida.
So, it all depends, I guess, on where they're trying to locate. But yeah, I mean, you're talking, yes, you're competing across multiple different utilities, yes. But if they're looking at a variety of things, it's not just renewables they're probably looking at what does the state taxes look like, a variety of other things as well. Probably goes into their assessment.
So a concept that I think you're referring to is kind of there's something called every time a 1 megawatt hour of electricity is produced from a renewable energy source like solar or wind, that is the equivalent of 1 REC, renewable energy credit. So there's an external marketplace where corporations, towns, cities, like we just did a deal with the city of Charlotte for one of our projects in Davidson County to sell essentially the credit for helping build and finance the facility over a period of time. And they take credit for being able to do that by buying the renewable energy credits. And so corporations or other entities that would like to take credit for helping provide more renewable electricity onto the grid will buy these RECs, and they will oftentimes like for it to be in a certain region. Like a lot of times you're not going to have an Amazon plant in Scotland County, South Carolina or North Carolina that they want to claim for a facility in Washington, for example. Like there's an extreme case. But so if there's a facility here and then there's some form of factory or development going on in the area, they would like to try to contract for the credits in that area.
So is Mark Ward, our economic development director, going to be able to in any way use this to Scotland County's advantage in
Yes.
recruiting industry? That's where I'm going with it.
I can name 3 or 4 projects I have worked on in the last 5 years, where having access to a green source was a big issue. When Apple Computer came to the town of Maiden in 2009, they wanted to make sure that they could do solar. It was very early utility scales. It was the earliest, and that was part of the agreement. But others, private companies have done that and like to be able to know that and to be able to say to their shareholders, this is what we're doing. But let me throw out one more fact here for this question here. The great thing about solar is that it takes a certain amount of money, and it's in the millions of dollars, to build a solar farm. It's basically a one-time expenditure. I'm simplifying, but it's a one-time expenditure. And the income coming back from the sale of that electricity basically pays off the investment in 5 to 7 years. Now you'll hear different numbers, but that's about the ballpark. It's paid for. So now, since sunshine is free, you basically have a minimal cost operation, solar or an energy plant, with a free product coming in as the raw source of the energy. And it's not true to say it's free energy at that point, but you get the point.
Compared to other fuel sources, it is essentially free. There are still operation maintenance costs
Yeah.
involved, but it's astronomically lower than having to be exposed to fuel risk. Like, I don't know if you guys saw the most recent announcement by Duke that was saying that they're reducing energy rates during this next couple of month period by like 4%. The reason they're able to do that is because of decreasing natural gas prices, because natural gas is one of the major sources of electric generation in the state. But when natural gas prices go up like they did last year, 2 years ago, and our bills were 20% higher, main part of that, it was because of the natural gas, not necessarily new solar coming on.
But doesn't Duke own Piedmont Natural Gas, who supplies the gas? Am I wrong about that?
Dominion Energy probably owns maybe a good bit. I mean,
Well, Dominion Energy's natural gas was bought by Enterbridge for heating and cooling systems. I don't know necessarily where Duke buys its natural gas. I would assume it's part of the same pipeline.
But do they not own natural gas plants themselves?
They own the plants, but they have to still buy the fuel.
I'm coming to put one little more slant on that, because you asked about the rates and I'm not a gambling person, but if I was to gamble, I would bet you the rates for Duke never go down. I mean, be my guess, I might be wrong, but I would bet they will never go down. So what he was talking about, Mike was talking about, in the utility industry, we call those pass-throughs. So if the price of natural gas doubles this month and you get your electric bill next month, do you think they're gonna have a rate increase to cover that? The answer is no. That's a pass-through. They claim they don't make any money off the fuel, and if the fuel doubles, if the fuel triples, if it goes up by a quadruple, your bill goes up the next month based on what their fuel costs were the next month. That happens. This won't cause your rates to go down, but will prevent their costs from going up to where they can't justify another rate increase as quickly. Will it eventually go up? I promise you they will. That's the way it works. But by having a levelized cost is half the cost of their nuclear plants, a little less, half the cost of their coal plants are just a little bit less than this operating cost won't allow them to go to the Utilities Commission and say, hey, we need more money. They're like, well, they do the books and they'll say, you didn't spend the money. You can't get another increase. So your rates are never gonna go down, but this will help suppress rate increases. Does that make sense? What I'm
Yes, sir.
saying?
It makes sense. I think
Just be glad you don't live in Texas.
I thought about that. So if the rates never go down, like you said, but there's no guarantee where the energy is dispersed, how do community citizens that could possibly be in need of cheaper costs be guaranteed that they'll get access to what you guys are providing?
It's a statewide. They've got a North Carolina, they have Duke Energy Carolinas, they got Duke Energy Progress, and each one of those entities works as a whole. So it doesn't matter if you're in Wilmington or Raleigh, those costs are accumulated. So if you have a house in Raleigh, or you have a house in Wilmington, or somewhere in between, your cost per kilowatt hour is the same for your house. If you are from Durham to Greensboro, to Winston-Salem, they have a little different rate structure, but every Charlotte, all their energy costs per house, per kilowatt hour is the same. So it's not like different from Scotland County, different from, Pembroke or any other county. They're everybody's covered by that. Utility they have one rate for resident, they have a rate for industrial, actually 3 or 4 rates for industrial, but I mean, they have a commercial rate and they are saying they're ubiquitous throughout the whole system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll never see a direct line from a solar farm to a substation in Laurinburg or Scotland County.
So
It just doesn't work
Yeah,
that way.
that's right. And if it was a gas power plant, it'd be the exact same thing.
And I think so a couple of like the topics that you're addressing are like, there's the concept of energy burden. So it's the amount of, so certain households that make a certain around income essentially are not going to be able to make their energy payments compared to another household that has a higher income. So there's they call that energy burden. And because of that, when rates increase, because of whatever the general demands of it, like you need more electricity generation because there's more demand across the entire state, across the entire region, across the country, rates going up, still having to adhere to that burden. And so the question is, what can these families do to be able to offset some of those costs? Because then they're just going to keep increasing besides just finding more income, which is, it's a personal issue. So one thing that Duke is required to do as a part of their, every year or so, they come out with something called an integrated resource plan, which they evaluate all the energy needs of the entire state or the entire region for North Carolina, South Carolina. They evaluate their energy needs, how they're going to meet it, and they model out in the future based off a number of factors. One of those things that they're required to do by the Utilities Commission is something called demand side services, or DSM monitoring. Essentially what it is they try to find ways to incentivize households to install energy efficient measures. And you can call up Duke, you can essentially get a free quote as to how to make your house more energy efficient, so that and there's rebates available for certain households to be able to either make their house more weatherized. So say it's an older house and it's drafty, it's less efficient. That's one way, or buying more energy efficient appliances and getting rebates for those programs, so that you can reduce the overall amount of energy consumption you need and reducing your electricity bill. Is it enough? In my personal opinion, I'm not going to speak for any other one entity. I don't think it's enough. Across the country, I don't think it's enough. But those programs are available. So when folks ask, what can we do? Our energy bills are going up and we can't afford it. It's a very real problem, and it's happening all over the country. That is one idea or solution. The other model of solar that is popular in certain places and unpopular in others is the idea of community solar, which is essentially where you have a smaller facility located in an area that is more designed for a certain aesthetic of a community. And essentially what it is once the facility is built, you can go to neighbors of that community and go, hello, there's this program available where if you participate in contributing X amount of dollars from your monthly bill to go towards this solar facility, we will credit some of your electricity every month. So you get some amount of savings. And depending on what market, depending on what state, depending on what region, that can be anywhere from 10 to 20% of your monthly electricity bill. And that's where like the on the ground, like, solar helping out a local community is very powerful. But due to the nature of being in Duke Energy territory, that is not something that we have right now.
Right.
They have talked about it, evaluating it in their integrated resource plan. There's conversations about what a program might look like to mirror other states that would be beneficial for communities of North and South Carolina. But I think that to answer that question, those are the two main things that we have at our disposal.
Would the rural electrics be more amenable to that than you?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, because the major transmission lines are going to be what's owned by Duke.
Right.
They're basically having to buy so much of this energy, renewable energy, to meet some kind of federal guideline. Is that not correct? We essentially.
So we have the state carbon plan, which is stating by 2030 that the state would reduce its or its carbon emissions by 70% of 2005's levels. That's a bunch of numbers. It just says more renewables, more electric cars, things like that.
They basically have to use this kind of energy to meet certain laws or requirements or whatever y'all.
That was a bipartisan bill that was negotiated between House and the State House and State Senate.
We have a lot of that problem.
So
I think, I mean, there's that, but it's also Duke looking at what energy resources are available, and it's just trying to create a reliable grid, right? Because not at all times is everything going to be working right. Where it's like, if you have the instance of winter rolling blackouts that we saw a couple of years ago, you got instances like that where other sources might be able to help and come in as well. So just having a reliable system as well, where you're not just reliant on just nuclear or just coal or whatever that may be. You have this portfolio of different varying energy resources.
And sadly, for Scotland County itself, we have like the WARM program. You have prorated energy. We have a poor community that overall would not be able to spend the money up front to do a lot of these programs where you can get Energy Star rebates. There's a lot of folks around here that can't go out and buy a brand new range. If they do that, they can't eat for a month. So it would behoove everybody if we had a greater giving program from all of the corporate America, but that's just not the way capitalism works. Everybody's going to give some, but as far as for Scotland County, we have to use the resources that we have currently, and not getting in politics, but we know the incoming administration is dedicated to cutting expenses, cutting government. So some of those resources we have may not be here in the future. And we'll have to go other places to help those people that are more in need. But that's not, your community involvement, scholarships and things like that, that is a step up. But you're not going to be able to directly input into this county and reduce poverty or reduce energy costs, because what you're doing is going basically to Duke. And I wish it was some other way that it could be. Like you said, there's things you don't agree with, but what it is what it is. And we just need to be aware of it. We need to be able to address those things in the future in whatever way we can. But right now in this meeting, we can't do it.
Yeah. We've had a lot of really nice philosophical discussions. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much of this is pertinent to their business and our business.
Exactly.
And my dinner's getting cold.
I want to bring in more things for the new members who probably won't hear the last time we had a meeting with them. But they caused some tremendous damage to a citizen in the county.
John, I don't think this is the time or place for that.
I just want to make them aware of that, that
I
it was done and this was,
That was the
I'm
time,
not
yeah.
trying to, okay. So that gives me concern about the future.
I understand, but
construction.
that's out of our hands. That's between the other parties. So I don't think we need to talk about that. Yeah, I appreciate what you're doing, but other discussion.
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. Also, I do agriculture every day for my day job and I farm. And obviously, I know that we cannot tell landowners what to do with our land, and you do want to keep it in the family, and I understand that. But like John said, I came to Scotland County because of, I wanted to help, my community, so I created a marketplace, for my community to have access to food. And as I see more land being gobbled up, that's more harder for the next generation to farm. Land is getting expensive all across the state, even here in Scotland. In that sense, these landowners would sell their land to young farmers, but I understand it's an economic decision. And so for me, it's kind of like taught me to understand, you as a landowner need to do the best for your land and for your family. But at the same time, when we do need, more farmers across the state and more young farmers, what are you supposed to do when this land is being gobbled up? And so it's a tricky situation. And I do think there should be like a special tax for these projects where you as a company will pay a special, tax to, Scotland County to benefit the county over the course additional to the tax you're already paying. I know it may not be really popular for y'all side, but, this community is, poverty stricken. And I think when I look at, every part that the county you come into is solar, and that's, I think that deters, other opportunities, especially where I'm at, been on 15501, with the proposed solar up the street from me, that will change, the whole corridor, and I just think that as a county, we need to be more, maybe more introspective to look at what's the long-term impacts of these projects, for the next generation of, young farmers who may want to come back to their family land and farm if it's not already in solar. And so for me, it's a tricky conversation, but I understand that, the final vote won't be here, but I just think that, like's been said before, I think the next time, you come, I think there should be a land use plan where we do stop, the solar or put more stringence on, the access of, organizations coming in, putting solar on the land. Because I do think there is a point where it's too much, and I think that we're probably getting close to that mark.
The good thing is we've changed our ordinance where we can implement more restrictions to them, like buffers and stuff like that within reason, and or, turn them down. But my point tonight was just to bring all this out in the open so we can all discuss it, so we all make our decisions.
And just for your information, Davon has bought land that was family back to my great-great-grandparents. We're glad to have him take over. And
I'm glad to see him here.
any other discussion? I know we've gone all over everywhere tonight.
Yes.
We've solved all the social evils in the whole world. Scotland County's gonna make millions of dollars now. Well, if there's no more discussion, I'd like to bring item 1 to a vote, which is a special use permit for the property located adjacent to Carver and Middle School, which is currently owned by Philip and Ellen Futrell, and south of Old Wire Road in Laurel Hill, property tax, Scotland County tax map number 309, lot 1, parcel 006. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have,
Could I ask if you have some suggestions on, I think there was a list of several things, and it may be satisfactory that it's in the application, but regarding the buffers and things like
It
that.
can be included in it.
Well, it'd be done in accord with that.
well, I'm assuming since they have,
It's in the packet.
the
It's in the
current
packet.
solar ordinances has been passed.
No, but this
Right.
is over and above the ordinance.
Making sure they do what they committed to the school system as in buffers and stuff like that. Is that right?
Per the
Well,
proposal.
Okay, I see.
The special use permit under the second one is the rezoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want the commissioners to include the protections that they have listed in their application in addition to approving it.
I think that's a benefit to have that included in there. So, Daniel, would you make that motion with the amendments to the special use permit to include the discussion, the items discussed with
So,
school
but
board?
is this gonna be a part of the packet?
That'll be part of the presentation. That's not part of the application.
We're
For
approving
rezone.
the special use application, but
Yeah.
we didn't
So
approve
this, so
that.
this presentation is not gonna be a part of the packet. It doesn't
No.
become a part of the packet.
No,
Because
the special
it's
use
added-
permit is totally separate than their presentation.
It's part of the special use permit as evidence.
Right. So it becomes a part of the special use as part of, it becomes a part of the packet.
If they promise anything or they say anything and that is for the special use permit.
Nonprofit organizations that are involved will come together to try to help the county as much as they can. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there as a plug.
Yeah,
because-
any grant we can get, because when we were developing the comprehensive land use plan, it was determined that grants are a source that we are not utilizing as well as we should in this county. So, any program that we can get a hold of. So,
That's not allocating funds necessarily. It's like resources, information, man hours to be able to help address concerns and questions and, generate discussion that we can bring up to more of a state level for North Carolina, South Carolina.
I would love to see you have a big turnout there.
I would love it too. I mean, they've had a couple of meetings so far. There haven't been a lot of folks and it's just, we
You
want
can
to get,
imagine, that's why we're the forefront of technical county.
And they're-
But people don't have time for it.
And they're trying to promote it by they're trying to go through newspapers or whatnot to try to promote, people to come out.
There's places for solar. Right. Like anything else, but.
Understood.
nice meeting you guys. Really appreciate it.
Great meeting.
I like that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's Mike and Mike, right?
Yes.
Easy.
Easy enough.
Okay, the, other items, gentlemen, it is 7:45, and I would like to suggest that since we are gonna have a regular business meeting on the 18th, that this other business, be postponed until that meeting when we have, so Jim's supper will be able to not get any colder, and mine as well. So, I'd like to make a motion that, the other business we have to attend to, which is discussing the major subdivision forms, explaining and understanding conditional zoning ordinance, and some other, these other items listed under F, other business. I'd like to make a motion that those items be postponed until our regular meeting, December the 18th.
You wanna wait till Brooke get back in here? I say you wanna wait till Brooke get back in here before you make that motion.
Wait for Brooke.
Yeah,
Is the camera working?
I don't know.
No, I don't think the camera's working.
Okay. I saw it, so, well, I thought I saw it on the screen. I thought the camera was working.
No, that was that computer, yeah.
I just saying that might be recording it for because they're all congregating up front chatting.
So we're making a motion to table when she gets back, is that what you're saying, or just set it for the
Yeah.
18th or whatever?
And I guess a motion does have to be made on that. I can't make an executive decision, can I?
Well, I don't think anybody's gonna fight you on it.
No. But I think Daniel's got a good point. We should go on record.
He usually has it.
So you're not gonna be here for the 18th meeting?
I will be here for the 18th meeting, but that will be my last meeting. For a while, anyway. Maybe forever if I die.
Uh-oh. You're not gonna think that.
That'll be all of our last meetings if we die.
Well, no, that might be y'all.
Really
last
appreciate, you and Davon making comments and
There's
asking
no zoning board
questions.
up there, buddy.
That's
You
one
gotta
thing
need to
that
go.
we really need for people that are invested in this county and are willing to ask questions and make comments. And maybe at times hurt some feelings a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we've had boards in the past that are scared to death to confront and scared to question people.
I just think they should be taxed. So if you're gonna do it, I mean, tax them to the point where they don't want to do it and that we economically benefit.
Well, the last time they were
Yeah.
here, we couldn't, we had a choice because of the way our ordinance was written.
Yeah.
We met them. Yeah, okay. Now we have
We can't legally
flexibility.
tax them.
So do that.
Right.
And there should be some type of economic incentive
Yeah.
over the landowner and their relationship to, like John said, it benefits the whole. I know there's rules to all that, but it's like they're not putting enough money back into the community. I mean, doing a couple of
They're
scholarships.
pointing enough to make a pretty picture.
Yeah, I mean, they should be mandated to say, okay, you gotta put X amount of dollars over the course of that period to improve the life of, Scotland County citizens.
If enough people like you make that argument to the state legislature, they can give us.
Well, that was your debate store sometime before I'll come by there and we'll discuss.
I mean, they can easy influx $1 million into the county. It wouldn't hurt their
It
pockets
would be
at
a
all.
drop in.
So I mean,
Well, what you may want to do, if you get an opportunity to go on the North Carolina Legislature website and just do a search for NC 160D. And that's the legislation that dictated the new ordinances back in 2022. And there's some good reading in there. But you'll also find a couple of things that we have found out. There's virtually nothing on family cemeteries. We had to do a family cemetery ordinance. And there's virtually nothing in there about solar ordinances. And what we did here, the county actually hired a lawyer to write up a new solar ordinance when the last time we had Cypress Creek through here. And we had basically no choice but to say, sure,
Dotted
okay.
their I's and crossed their T's.
Yeah. So, with the comprehensive land use plan and new solar ordinance, that's a much bigger toolbox than what we had a year ago.
We can just get that land use plan.
Yeah, if land use
Is there
plan had been
public
voted in, I should have more support.
No, there was some errors in it.
It's
They wanted
partially
to correct them.
agricultural driven, and then we can use that as, this is our future, we want, you know.
You want it right. you know.
But tonight, it's kind of hard to back it up when it hadn't been voted yet.
Yes.
I made a motion that we table item F, other business, until our December 18th meeting.
Okay.
And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
John seconded. All
I'm
in
being
favor?
positive.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second that.
Did I have a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Right. And Daniel, you seconded? Okay, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right, gentlemen, thank you. And Brooke.
Everything's a record. I never had anybody voting against the motion.
Right.